Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 18. I'm your host, Alejandro. With me is the beta male.
Paul?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Yeah, if you've been playing Stellar Blade, you know they use a lot of beta in the,
Mm-hmm.
in that thing. How you doing, Paul? You missed last week after you were,
I,
thankfully 2 weeks in a row last time,
yep,
so...
I did 2 weeks in a row, and then last week I had some things going on that I'm blanking out on right now. Basically, like, every evening was taken up, and
Mm-hmm.
during the day was taken up
Mm-hmm.
because I moved out of my old house,
Mm-hmm.
fully into the new place, fully set and settled in pretty much, and even more unpacked than I was
The
like
first time.
the last year. I
Mm-hmm.
have an actual PC again, hooked up to everything, so that
Yeah.
feels really
So
nice.
that PC that you had shown me, is that where you played Halo Infinite that one time? Or
Uh,
was it at a laptop? Because I remember you...
it was a desktop. It was
Oh,
that.
okay.
That's why I was so frustrated at how much screen tearing and terrible performance was going, because I was like, I know I have the power
Mm-hmm.
for this to work. Why is it not working? And I think that was like the final breaking point for me for playing a lot of PC games.
Yeah, no, it's like your specs are already like they're no longer compatible with what's coming. So
Well, that's just it. Is I've looked into it in other directions. Apparently, it's just really poorly optimized for my system. But my rig should be able to handle most things still on like the average. Like so,
I remember when you told me what graphic card you have. It's like not even that. You're barely scratching low settings at this point. So
I
with
don't
like
know.
newer
It
games.
depends. But for like the newest of the new, the nice kind, yeah, maybe. But I'm feeling more content with just sitting with what I have and
Mm,
moving forward with console work because
yeah.
it's too exhausting just keeping up with PC
Oh yeah.
stuff.
That's why I intentionally always ignore the idea of ever going full on PC, because I know myself that as soon as I start seeing games that start climbing up in like requirements for them to like run optimally, and me that I like things running optimally, that's why I like just staying on the console space, because at least I can keep myself in check. I
Yeah,
know I wouldn't keep myself in check. Be like, as soon as like a new graphics card would it would pop out, that's like $1,000 something, I would want to get that. So that's why I'm like, nope, I cannot do PC. I'll just stick with my in my layman lane. And plus, we get almost everything that we want to play on console. So, uh, so
just
that
wish your review crew would give us more console stuff and not
yeah,
PC all the time.
yeah. The thing is that we are at the mercy of what the devs send, and PC just tends to be like the one that they have the most codes for some reason, because they're the easier ones to get. So. But yeah, Paul, this is also episode Global for 149. Next week, it's how can I say this, man? By the way, people, I've been recently diagnosed with what you call it, positional vertigo, that weird thing that happens with like your inner ear that will make me ramble or kind of lose my train of thought more often than I usually do in the shows. But yeah, uh, we're getting a celebratory episode next week, like our third anniversary, or fourth probably. Like
Technically,
yeah, depends. Like if you count from 2021 onwards, we've done 150 of those. Even though like the later third of the show, you've been more like on and off, on and off, on and off. Like it's still like been like the show has been continuing like with no problem. I've been like holding that fort. You've still been doing like all the thumbnails you still do, so you technically have still been like working on it. So, and now we're like down to the wire, because when is your baby being born?
the due date is the 24th, but
Okay.
technically, due to the way it works is babies can be born anywhere from 5 weeks early before
Mm-hmm.
that and 5 weeks after. So it is anywhere. He is technically fully ready
Mm-hmm.
as of like last Friday or
Yeah.
this past Friday. So who knows?
Yeah.
Like he could go into labor at any time.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask. Like if Alyssa was gonna go for the natural, or if you're gonna go for the C-section.
Definitely natural
Yeah.
because the more research we found out is like you literally just carve through organs and muscle and everything. It's so hard of a recovery
Mm-hmm.
that it's easier to it is in fact easier to just do a regular birth
Yeah.
because it's way more painful on the back end of it all.
All right. Yeah, hoping for the best. At least I hope that we can get to episode 150 soon. Even if we have to record it like out of order and not have to talk about news, just to for it to be like a celebration. We'll have to talk about that if we have to do that super early. But yeah, looking forward to it. I can't believe it's been 150. Like May the 4th was just this past Saturday. It was serendipitous that episode 100 landed on May the 4th that one time. Sucks that it did in this year, but that was because we also started late. Because we usually start the first week of January. We started the second week this time because I was sick. So yeah, I'm also sick again with this ear stuff. But
what is the word on that? How is like the how long is the path to recovery?
so supposedly, like the doctor gave me 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, but
Any idea what caused it?
It's random, like a positional vertigo, something that happens within your inner ear, and it's so random and what causes it for people. Because there are some vertigos that you get due to other sicknesses like hypertension and all that, and there are others like the one that I have when he detected in me because he like checked my eyes, my ears, and all of that, and like all my lumps, that something within my inner ear must have like snapped, kind of like the thing that keeps like the balance. That just sometimes randomly happens for people, so it requires both medication and some weird exercises I have to do in my bed, which suck. But yeah, I had to like make do. It's been a really crappy weekend because it's been like I can't like stare too often. In fact, I think I'm gonna have to do this.
Oh, he's doing it.
Yeah, I might have to like do this like glasses at least for a little bit. So so that way I don't get like too hurt by the by kind of like the glare, and that starts kind of like messing me up. But
Uh-huh.
but yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna be wearing this like Matt Murdock glasses at least for a little bit.
All right.
But
Well, that's fun.
yeah, but at the very least I can read. So and that's gonna be better. But yeah, this is just a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing. Available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming as well as most audio services around the world. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. We might post this episode early because we're recording literally on a Monday. This is the earliest we recorded in a week since like that one time I recorded on my birthday back in 2021 when we talked about the post-abandon shenanigans. So, so yeah, it's been that long ago, and how different recording times used to be for us. So, what have we been playing, Paul? I talked about Stellar Blade briefly last week, kind of like giving my impressions of that game like 10 hours in, and I said that I liked it and didn't love it. I like the combat, I like the how it looks, how it feels, how well made it is for a studio that usually just made mobile games, especially coming from Korea. But I was having such a hard time like connecting to it like from a story level, and story wise I'm still not quite there yet, though more interesting stuff has finally happened like 15 hours like later, and also some combat stuff that has been added. But what do you think of like what you played of Stellar Blade? Because I don't know like how much you kept playing, because I know you've been playing other stuff. So take it away.
So we're talking Stellar Blade first then. What I covered was definitely the same parts that you were bouncing off of. It was like I think your description of it was I played it for a couple of hours and then I feel the desire to play something else.
Yep.
And that's definitely still where I'm at. I had no desire to try to advocate for this game. I didn't want to like give it an unnecessary amount of gameplay before I finally hoped to change my thinking on it. So it was definitely, I got to the desert portion of the game, which is funny because at first I was maligning the city portion. And I got to the desert and I missed the city, which is a very weird feeling to go. It's like, oh, I had it way better than I thought I did. And I just, the designs for the monsters are great. The art direction for like the weird like holy symbols and statues and the crazy design for the city is super cool.
Yeah, it's an aesthetically pleasing game. in
I
many
do like
ways.
it. Even like the spaceship was awesome with like the angel sculpture on the front of it. The way that whole thing looked, this crazy like sci-fi biblical themed situation. And then the rest of the game, like it starts to stumble over itself very quickly. And just from the character work, the combat is fine. I know a lot of people are saying it gets even better.
Oh yeah, that'll definitely see. That's what made me enjoy it more.
Running around a bland desert and talking to people that say just the most boring NPC lines I've ever heard. Some people were like, this might have been like just AI written and performed by somebody, because it's like the most. I've listened to like a collection of some of the lines that are said by different people, and it's like absolutely insane. Doesn't follow any logic in some areas. And the side missions are very much not there at all, and I just don't feel a desire to keep playing the game, which is so disappointing, because it sounds like it's supposed to get better. I just don't know if it's worth pushing for that, and especially as somebody who loves hack and slash games.
Yeah, so far I would say now with where I got yesterday, last night, I say yes, but it's a trudge to get there, because it was still like this. The whole like I only play for 1 hour or two and then I just want to play something else. That still holds true. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I was even talking about it last week, that I don't know if this is the game where I'm finally my body's kind of like taking me to penance over how much I degeneratedly played Rebirth like a month ago, like in its completionist run, and my struggle to try to shut off wanting to do everything that's like on a map, or just trying to like beeline. Yesterday was when I was like, screw the side quests, I'm just gonna grab them and have them in my list. I'm just gonna try to beeline as much as possible, and that's what helped me, because during the beeline it takes you through the more linear stuff, and that's where more better level design starts popping, and also where the gameplay variety starts kind of like showing itself up. Like there's like this section like near the end of the first desert area where the game completely changes genres. You lose your sword, you can only use your gun, and it becomes Dead Space, because you're like in this like sci-fi looking lab with like the monsters, and you have to dismember them and shoot them like with all the bullets that you can get from your gun. That really added spice to the variety, because it's like through that entire section you don't hack and slash at all. You don't have your sword, you only have your gun. And even like a very grotesque monster that's like in like this big band, you have to kind of like keep doing the perfect dodges and shooting him in like the weak spots. That reminded me a lot of also Lost Planet, like in like the in the glowy yellow areas. That I was like, okay, this is kind of like why I'm starting liking this more, because like it's taking kind of like the spirit of Nier Automata, that it's such a huge inspiration of that game, on how that game changed genres like so often. And that was one of like those moments. And then I flying to a different area that wasn't that was not the desert, that was more kind of like an underground lab area. That's kind of where I got to the boss fight against like an angel looking creature that you probably, if you've seen the trailer, kind of like you told me about, it's like it has like a very big like quote unquote reveal for the story based on like where the game originally started, and that gives you like extra abilities, like this game's version of the Devil Trigger. That's actually like really cool, and what it does to the combat, on top of other abilities like what you do with R1. Like, you know how L1 and face buttons do kind of like some strong attacks? You eventually get the R1 version of that you feel that meter on perfect dodges and the kills you get when you like nail down like a certain amount of parries for a certain enemy to get like the execution. And it adds like extra style to like the attacks. It adds is that raspberry?
It is.
Yeah, I was like
just off camera slightly wanting pets.
Hey kitty. So yeah. And the XR1 attacks like that give kind of like quick area attacks, or like a quick jump in the air to just like slam and do like big waves. It's like it adds even more variety to the combat, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of depth here. And then when you earn that L3R3 thing, that adds extra strength, but at the cost of you not building beta energy, which is how you do the L1 attack. Man, I have missed your cats. It's been a while since I've seen him.
Lately, I've been able to hide myself into the office, but I started the session with him still in here,
Yeah.
sleeping, and then he woke up and he started roaming around. So I might have to let him out at some point if he gets to be a pain.
Yeah. I mean, I know all about cats now with like the sons of the kitty of my grandmother that are like the cutest thing. But yeah, like you add all that, and then like I moved to another area that it's still a desert. That's kind of like probably my biggest sticking point of like the environmental diversity is like there's kind of like very what's the word, man? I tell you, like my mind is kind of like cuckoo. It's there's the decrepit city of Zion, and then there's desert, and it feels like that's all there is. And that is like, even though like the game can be aesthetically pleasing, it at the same time can be aesthetically boring. It reminded me a little bit of what we were talking about Jedi Survivor recently, kind of like a random chat. How we love that game, but from environments, Jedi Fallen Order wins. It's more like aesthetically memorable and more varied compared to like Jedi Survivor that takes you through a desert that then tries to give kind of like a sky section and some fire area and kind of like a swamp, but it's still like at the most part a desert. And then another big area is like an Arizona desert in Jeddah. So it's reminded me a lot of that aesthetic. And also that it's been like when I've been playing Stellar Blade, I've been like, should I fire up Jedi Survivor again? Kind of because there's.
I mean, I did earlier, and maybe that's one reason why I wasn't enjoying Stellar Blade all that much, because I realized that it's a lot more Jedi Survivor than I thought it was going to be, because it's not really hack and slash, even though it was marketed.
No, that's the thing. It's a marriage of both. You cannot play it just like a Souls like. You cannot play it as a hack and slash. You have to use everything, and that's kind of like where my where the combat started clicking with me more, because like don't feel bad about just spamming your L1 attacks against sometimes just normal rank and file, because you can like recharge the beta energy like relatively quick. And that way is like you can kill those enemies quicker, because then if you just start just trying to wail and then maybe hope for like the parry windows, sometimes those enemies are too slow and that bores quick. It's like, okay, it's like you're not attacking too quick for me to like just try to do like a parry. Like think of Sekiro. The pace of how those enemies like attack you is like you had to be like on your ball to get the L1 parries all the time. The parry is very similar to Sekiro, but like the enemies are not as aggressive in that way for parry to be like the way forward. It's like, no, we have everything in this game. It's a smorgasbord. It's like there's your hack and slash, but then you have to nail the parries and the perfect dodges, and it's like a constant dance between the two. And it's when you get into that flow state when the combat really sinks. If you only get into one mentality with that combat, then that's where you start like struggling. So that's kind of like what started like turning that around for me. So now like I didn't know if I was gonna like finish the game because of where I was feeling, but like after yesterday, I'm like, I finally got away from like the side quest mode. I think I can finally just try to like beeline like a normal human being. I want to definitely see where it goes, even though story wise it's still kind of like nothing too special. It's definitely more of a gameplay aesthetics first game than and story second, and that's kind of like a bummer, because it's like the themes that it's kind of playing with. When you remember like a similar game in Nier Automata that gameplay wise it's fun, but it was like it's not even remotely as close as fun as like a character action based game. It was more basic than most, but I know some people managed to like find like cool combat out of that game. Is the story that carried that thing. This is the complete opposite. The combat is
the personalities out of all of the best parts of Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, and then you made a game around it, and you said, "Oh, we're going to be profound like Nier Automata," and then didn't do anything close to that. It's just
it's more because it's not telling anything even remotely different about like what Nier Automata is told. It's like it's very, I mentioned before, it's like this has a very we have Nier Automata at home energy for me. So
I think one of the best parts of it, the funniest parts of all of that is something that Susie said that I'm going to butcher on the word delivery, but it was essentially you play the game for about 10 minutes and then they kind of present you with this mystery of like, where are the people? What happened to all of the people? And it's like you can probably guess immediately, and then the game in like 40 hours is going to act like it's some big reveal, and you're just like, I have a feeling it's probably all the things that look like they're made out of humans.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what happened to the humans.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Whoa, hold on, guys! We don't know what happened to the humans here. It's crazy."
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just a little disappoing that that's all it is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but that's kind of like what, kind of like where this game just lands. It's like, for the people that really love a very in-depth combat system, this game has it. It absolutely has it, and it just keeps getting better over time. But if what you want is something that also strings you along to add extra meat to that combat system from like narrative and all that, I'm already 15 hours in, and I'm just still kind of going through the motions narratively. So definitely don't recommend it for that. But for like for fun action, if you just stick with it, just mainline it, or figure out some of like these side quests that actually give you like legit rewards. I think a random side quest gave me like a double jump. Yeah, so it was like it was so strange. I was like, was that really like how I got the double jump? Because I went through like a side quest where I went to a down a hallway like in Zion, where I got kind of ambushed and I got like stabbed in the back by someone, and then after that cutscene was done, I was like at my base, and then I think it's Athena. I forget the chick that what are your two companions that is kind of like as your tech support.
Oh, Lily?
I don't think it was called Lily.
Lily's no, she's the mechanic.
Mhm.
And Adam. I don't think I've met anybody else. Actually.
Yeah, so it's Adam and the other girl. I forget the name.
That's Lily. Yeah.
Okay, so whatever how it's called. I thought it was called Athens for some reason. So she after I talked with her, then suddenly I'm like, now you have a double jump. I'm like, wait, what? Now I do, and it feels nice because this game's platforming without it feels so stiff, and now with like a double jump, I'm like, okay, this now feels fluid, and the animation.
I've seen gameplay of it, and it's not even really a double jump. It just kind of like hovers you in the air a little more while she does the flip.
Yeah.
So like it keeps you in the air, but it doesn't really give you any height.
Yeah, but it's like it gives you more height than what you had before. So it's like that. So that just alone makes the game feel less stiff in platforming. So again, it's like small improvements. I want to see what more there is to the combat now where I am and how much longer I have, because I heard that this game can be done in like 20 hours. So I definitely want to keep playing it right now, because there's nothing really coming out until the 21st. So it's like I'm in no rush. We'll see. So I said 7.5 last time. I'm still holding to that. Depends on how it ends. It may be an 8. I don't know. So, Paul, but instead of you playing new games, you kind of like went back to, I wouldn't call like maybe cozy or kind of like comfort food, but definitely to older, more known stuff. You were playing with 3 games. Talk me about it.
Yeah, so the first one, I am actually going to start with the last one because it's the shortest amount of time I spent with it. I went back to Kingdom Come Deliverance, and for about 45 minutes I played that, and I pretty quickly dropped off just because I don't think I'm in the right mood for it. Probably going to have to repeat this for Alejandro in case he took his headset off. It's hilarious that Alejandro has heard about it. So, I was just explaining that I took a very short amount of time on Kingdom Come Deliverance because I walked around, I killed some enemies, and then I realized, don't want to play this. So, I guess my finishing of that game is going to have to wait a little longer, and hopefully I can still finish it before the second game comes out. Then I moved on to Starfield, and playing that a lot less than the other item that I'll mention, but I'm kind of working my way up.
Yeah, and you went back to Starfield because we recently heard about the patch that came out last week that they're adding
I wanted to kind of set myself up for success to get ready for the patch and then for the DLC that comes out. That's at the end of the month, though, right?
The DLC is on the fall.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I got that totally wrong.
Yeah, on the 15th is the day 1 patch that takes the game out of early access.
So, okay, that makes a little more sense. I don't know why I thought I heard that the expansion was coming earlier. Anyway, well, yeah, so I was getting myself ready for the new patch to see if I was going to enjoy myself a little more, because I never finished the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Still in the original worlds of everything, and it was funny enough. I was at the exact quest where everything actually gets explained, but I stopped one jump before I actually got to the station
Yeah.
where you get to talk to the specific characters,
The emissary. Yeah.
the emissary and the hunter, where you figure out like the big reveal
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of what's going on. And like I kind of had some of it spoiled, but I didn't know like the identities of the
Mm-hmm.
characters, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word.
The identities were a cool reveal,
Yep.
especially based on the choice on the climactic mission that happens halfway through the game. So.
Yes, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that
Mm-hmm.
wants to get there, because I thought that was actually a really cool trick,
Mm-hmm.
especially if all you're doing is listening to what the game is giving you up until that point. It's a pretty big shift for
Mm-hmm.
like the events of the game.
And pretty much sets up the new that like reveal sets the stage for the new game plus that this game like hinges its main story on and its structure on.
I am very impressed for them having the restraint to kind of keep something like that. I mean, of course, the internet is the internet, but on their side, they attempted to keep that reveal as far along as possible. And I understand how a lot of people who played through the game felt this renewed sense of motivation, because every run through New Game Plus is like part of the
fresh.
canon, and it's fresh because everything changes as you go.
And I've seen what people that done 10 New Game Plus runs, like how that like shapes up, and that's actually that's such a really cool like design choice when it comes to them doing that narrative, because it's like it backloads everything to like the repeatability of playing the game in a way that Bethesda didn't do before. But again, kind of because we were having that long conversation with our buddy Sebastian that because for him like the story of this game is atrocious. I was like, I completely disagree on it being atrocious. It's more like it's so intentionally uneventful because it's setting up for the new game plus that then when you go through like the different narrative threads that you can like revisit and then you start seeing how it shifts around.
I'll say something wild. It's a single player game that plays its campaign like it's a live service game.
Yeah, it is.
And it's that's a weird feeling, honestly, because it's, when you really think about it, the whole game is a prequel, prologue to what the actual events of your adventure are supposed to be. And like you can't say that without kind of spoiling part of the game to a lot of people, but then at the same time a lot of people, myself included, are like, why did you save all of this until after you're supposed to have finished the game and such?
Do you remember when they were recommending you to not do side quests and just do the main quest first? Remember when they were doing that?
And I'm starting to get it now, because I'm thinking about how many hours I spent on that stupid corporate espionage mission.
Ryujin.
And and that was what killed me, because I wanted to play through it and I was like, this is a really interesting storyline, but the gameplay is horrible for it.
Yeah, Ryujin got ruined for me because I never spec'd for stealth in like in the skill tree, and that was like a quest line where you had to infiltrate the Ryujin building and stealth.
Because if you fail, you get nothing, and I think it like you just have to succeed for it to move forward at some point.
Yeah, it showed like a broken, like to me it was like these are broken stealth mechanics. Like they're watching me, at the enemies literally like the backs are literally like in front of me. Like there's no way that they could see where I am, and it was like it was a weird stealth based on like sound more than like vision cone, and that it was like and to me it was like one of the worst parts was like there was no signposting of you having to, especially for a game that is all about giving you the freedom to spec how you want to, and because that's kind of like always been Bethesda stuff. It's like they put a quest line in the game that is like so important for you to spec for stealth, which means that you immediately can screw yourself if you like put more important skill tree somewhere else. And I remember we were having that conversation that
that skill tree system is still so bad.
Yeah, because it's like
I'm hoping that that's one of the things that gets like kind
of
moved around. Just the fact that one of the most important skills of having more people available to work on your ship is the last thing you can unlock in the social tree. Like oh, that blows my mind. I'm still sitting there like, I really need to just spec entirely into this to get basic
Yeah,
functionality.
I remember we were having that conversation about there were some there were some specific elements of specific skill trees that didn't make sense why they were where they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like there was like a lot of like moving and stumbling with that game when it comes to like a lot of its systemic depth. But I returned briefly when they showed the patch because I kind of wanted to see where I stopped, and I was kind of like in the middle of one of its million go get your powers at this like ruin where you have to like float around for the thing that looks like interstellar. And despite everything, Paul, I was reminded because my memory I had to like keep it clear. It's like me finishing this game coincided with the game becoming more unstable and my great grandma passing. That happened next to each other. So it created an extra negative aura around it that then like by the time that then I was done, it was like that was kind of like my lasting taste because it was like my mind was just thinking of Cloud from Rebirth, kind of like it was a complete mental smorgasbord that completely clouded like how I really felt about that game. And then I had to like look at our chat log from like September 1st all the way to September 17th, which is when I finished it. I remember being smitten by this game despite a lot of its problems, like, and going back to it, even though there's still kind of like the boring parts, like I'm in this planet where I'm just running around. I wish the buggy that they announced in the video that they say they're working on like now a actual vehicle to go through this planet, it was actually already in the game. It's like there is still a special aura to Starfield that makes me want to keep rooting for it, as now we're getting now new content announced. The patches are gonna finally add a lot of quality of life, specifically the one that I'm most excited for. The you will no longer will need a mod to give yourself enough inventory space to not be encumbered. They're building that into the options with a very fair XP penalty, which when I saw the percentage I was like, I feel that's a nice trade-off.
It was like 4,
Yeah,
6% or
it's like
something.
6% if you go
But
for
like you can also add that back in other ways. Like you
uh-huh.
just want the enemies to be a little more difficult, and then you want all of your inventory to be easy to access. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, I'll take that bet in a
And
second.
my favorite is that you can have like all the inventory space within you, and they enable you having access to your ship's inventory everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like now you're not gonna have any problem hoarding everything, and that's something that I always liked about Bethesda games, is that no other RPG does like the minutia that everything can be grabbed like they do these games. Cyberpunk doesn't do it like many other RPGs doesn't do it. Those other games go more for the fidelity instead of like the interactivity. That's always what Bethesda games have always done. So that's why I was like, this quality of life, and on top of them finally adding maps, is like, okay, finally I will be able to go to like a city and know where the damn medic is. I'll know where like the store is to go buy bullets now, because some of the design was like not clearly signposted for them to like do that. No, you don't need a map because the game is so immersive. You're gonna like guide yourself through the whole immersion of this world. It's like they conceded that didn't work for the game they built.
Yeah.
So now you'll be able to see that. And I know that I was talking with Rick Hogue that he was disappointed seeing like when you pull the scanner up, now you have like the million icons that show up. I'm like, I'm gonna wait to see. I feel that can be customized. I feel like there's gonna be an option to not have all of that show up.
Where are you
This
talking about the icons?
when you hold it, like they showed in the video of the patch that's coming out on May 15th that
Talking
on
about the
top.
vision one or the map?
No, division. You press
Okay, got
L1 when you press LB on Xbox, and you bring kind of like the scope where you scan. Now a million icons show up if you put out the scanner like in the city. And he was saying that to him was like a step back because he really enjoyed like the immersion of not knowing. And I'm like, let's see, because it's like they're showing so many options. I bet you can turn that off if you still want to keep the immersion. You can do that in many of the other Bethesda games. So to me, that's
Yeah.
that's not a big problem. So especially for a game that to me is like I said, is that to me this Starfield was always a good game brought down by quality of life. Like it always had like a good core to it. I wouldn't call it bad. Calling you Sebastian. I know what a bad game is. I reviewed one recently. So uh, so that's why
I
I'm
would
like,
say, yeah, but I do feel like I need to give it at least a little bit of its flowers because I was talking smack about it the last like 20 minutes. It is still a great vibe,
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to, when you're running through an area. The combat is still really fun, especially when you're pairing it with like a really good power.
Mm-hmm.
The gravity wall is still my favorite by far. It just
Mm-hmm.
ragdolls enemies and it feels so good,
Mm-hmm.
especially if I was like inside this asteroid and there's an enemy near the top. I It's low gravity, so I'm just like soaring through the air. I land behind it. And he goes face
Yeah.
first over the banister and just flies off into oblivion. It felt so good.
And I don't know if you agree with me with this, Paul, because I went back to, we played Fallout 76 briefly when we were helping Travis on his
Oh yeah, yeah.
re-review for Fallout. I briefly have played Fallout 4 again because the next gen patch came in. Oblivion, I went back when Sebastian kind of told us something interesting about its main story because it was like, I didn't quite see it that way, and that's kind of like an interesting conceit for like a main story. Out of all of Bethesda's games, Starfield's world is my favorite. Just existing there, just because
I that one, Chief.
no, because I love sci-fi, I love space,
No.
I love exploring space more than a post-apocalyptic bland Fallout or a high fantasy that I've seen in many other places.
Yeah.
It's like those other games are better games, but the world of Starfield is the one that just on like atmosphere and vibe alone, and kind of like some of like its interesting art style choices within like sometimes within your ship or some like the space station, because I remember I saw a few like red colored space stations that I was in my last save. I was like, there's something about this vibe that I really like connect with in a way that I usually don't connect with Bethesda environments, but those other games are better. And that's kind of why I want to defend Starfield more, because it's like I want this game to like reach its full potential when they finally get the expansion in and the quality of life stuff, because I love existing here. Like I really love just kind of like just walking around and seeing the skybox of like the sundown and seeing and seeing the planets like in real time, like move when you're like serious. Like they did a bunch of real time stuff that a lot of people don't give this game credit for, that I appreciate now that I've gone back to their older games. It's more of a leap than people think. Obviously there's way prettier games outside, way prettier games. I mean, just look at Cyberpunk, which came out so close to like Phantom Liberty came out close to it. It's like just fidelity alone that creams it. But there's still something about Starfield that is like so cozy, and I don't know how much of that is my own bias towards space stuff than I do that I do like their other two environments. So
Yeah, okay. I think I get what you're saying. I think it's a shame that they also give you the power to just fast travel yourself to death.
yeah,
So you don't end up experiencing any of that. And
mm-hmm.
I
I don't.
did,
I actually like. I intentionally do it. Like I think it's depends if all you want to do is just complete all your cycles and all that. To its detriment, this game becomes fast travel the game. So
but I was going to point out that side of it, and it very much depends on where you go.
mm-hmm.
Because if you don't and you're not on a great planet for it,
Oh, I know. Yeah, it looks bad. So,
because most of those planets are just dead rocks,
mm-hmm.
very 2014 era No Man's Sky,
Mm-hmm.
and I pray and don't have a whole lot of faith in Bethesda's ability to like revamp their planet system enough that
Mm-hmm.
that would feel good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They either need to like shorten how much space you have to run around, or like make more points of interest, or give us that vehicle they've talked about, or more to fly around in. I don't know what they want us to do, but
it basically like the game's fundamental flaw will always be them wanting to have their cake and eat it too. Here are a million planets for you to explore, but we're only handcrafting like 5 of them. In the 5 handcrafted ones is like you see the Bethesda like writing and magic of them building these places, and then everywhere else is just kind of random that doesn't feel as substantive. But you want the magic of exploring the galaxy, kind of like a No Man's Sky, and that's kind of like where this game kind of falls flat. That makes me wish this game had been more like the Outer Worlds, whereas like they had just like nailed and focused just on the things that they were handcrafting. Even though right now, obviously, like we've talked about, is like, why is the dream of the space exploration game so impossible? It just is. It sucks. It sucks. It's like No Man's Sky, the only way they've been able to do this because that entire game is just one procedural generation after another, which comes with its benefits and also comes with its detriments too. What's Star Citizen? Never coming out. Still
Yeah.
being built. So
At least there's a surprisingly large amount of stuff to do in it. Apparently, it's just
mm,
never releasing. But that's
yeah,
weird.
because
Uh,
it's impossible. So
yeah, it's there's no way they're gonna get that to happen. Anyway, so yeah, that happened. And then the last thing I'm gonna talk about before we can move on is Dragon Quest 11, baby,
mm-hmm.
because I
Cozy,
think I'm
cozy, cozy game.
I am starting to turn the corner in that game. I think it actually, the earlier parts of it are also some of its weaker because I didn't realize, I was not familiar with its game, for lack
Mm-hmm.
of a better term, because the more characters you have, the more you really feel that, like, the full breadth of what you're capable of doing as a party, as like an actual team. The characters are all shockingly fleshed out, even though
Mm-hmm.
they all look like stereotypes of some kind or another. I am starting to like settle into the warm waters that is this world and its storyline, because like the first real area I think that you really get to is that desert one,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't super huge on it. I was just like, all right,
Do
cool,
you
this is
hate desert?
no, but I think there's very difficult to do them right because
Okay.
there's not a whole lot to look at. But then, like, I remember Final Fantasy 15's deserts. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because like you can kind of move past them or
You
traverse
start. Remember, you
trees.
start in the desert in that game and then move to
Yeah.
greener areas after.
So maybe it's like if you started in a desert and then move on. I don't know. But like I didn't even mind Sandland's situation either because you
Mm-hmm.
start in a desert and that supposedly move on to other types. But um, when there's nothing to do or to look at, that's when I think it bothers me. But also
Mm-hmm.
in real life, deserts are easily my least favorite place to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take forests, tundra,
Yeah, give me
to
tundras.
jungle,
Yeah, tundras are my
anything.
vibes.
But I have zero desire to go to like parts of Texas, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
like none of that. They can keep that whole quarter of the country.
Mm-hmm.
No desire to ever go there.
Yeah, I like
Um,
desert areas as long as like they're accompanied by a lot of infrastructure. That's a bit like if it's just
yeah.
plain desert. Yeah, it's like I don't like just being there all the time.
Oh,
So.
another good example, Red Dead Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Love that place. Love all of the maps because it's unique. And
Mm-hmm.
even within that, desert is not just sand or barren rock. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot going on in there.
There's like a lot of geography in
Yeah,
the desert in
and
Red
even
Dead.
like foliage and the animals and stuff, it's all unique. So yeah, there's exceptions to it, but I feel like games kind of use deserts as like, oh, that is one of the locales, and then they do nothing with it. Another
Mm-hmm.
good example, Halo 3.
Yeah.
Great desert.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm gonna move on from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't really care for the storyline they were doing with that whole thing, but then immediately past that, you go to this like it's basically Venice, Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's even like speaking Italian at times or like thick Italian accents, and I realized like in parts of it, it could be stereotypes
Mm-hmm.
in some ways, but in some ways it's also like just silly and cute and fantasy. um there was a lot of like a real shift in the way that you had to play the game
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit because you're still being hunted by like the holy knights of the whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because you're considered like the dark one um incorrectly and being framed for it. So there's like this kind of dynamic that you're trying to survive and prove yourself, but also you're getting into these fights all the time. And I thought that was really interesting that you could just get into these fights like that. There was like a stealth segment, but you could also just like beat the crap out of the enemies and get a lot of XP. You got a new character pretty fast out of that, which was a unique.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a lot of difficulty because my party composition was only like the thief guy, your
Mm-hmm.
hero, and then the two mage girls, which were just not very powerful and
Mm-hmm.
like they could get hit a couple of times and they were gone. And then finally getting this other guy bulked up my line a little bit and it made it feel like I wasn't getting trounced so easily. and then immediately after that was a Octagonia, which is just an entire city based around fighting. And you get into a fighting tournament and meet your other two party members as other rivals in the tournament. There's a whole situation where you're partnered with like the champion of the last year, and there's a mystery going on with people disappearing. This orphanage that's at the center of it all, like surprisingly interesting storyline, and then culminating with this crazy fight against a giant spider demon. But like all of the designs are so cool. Like I've never seen a monster quite like that, and it's just like I feel like I'm in a storybook, and that has never been more true in this example.
It's funny you mentioned storybook because I know how that game ends because PJ told me.
Oh really? So, yeah. Well, don't spoil it because I have no idea the story. But yeah, it's very storybookish. I'm guessing it's like a story being told later on or something.
Think Final Fantasy 16.
I had a feeling that's
why PJ spoiled it to me because he told me that the ending of that game reminded him of Dragon Quest 11.
Well, at least that's still vague enough to be like, because so many of those stories are exactly like that from the old days, where it starts with them opening a book, you tell a story, and then the book closes at the end. It doesn't mean it wasn't like, oh, this is just a made-up story. It's like, hey, this happened in the past or whatever. So that's exciting either way. But I'm glad that the aesthetic works so well, and I'm like, some other stuff. I'm understanding the mechanics a lot better, and it's not like a game can just keep hitting things and healing and that's it. Like if you're in a fight against a big enemy, you got to work with what you've got, but on the plus side they really help you out clearly in certain fights. Like there was a fight I would consider pretty unfair that it's just you and then like the champion character, very Sephiroth helping Cloud kind of a situation, and he helps heal you, he does a lot more damage, and then if you lose it's like, hey, don't worry, buddy, I've fought us to a standstill. We were a tie. We're in for a rematch now. And then it resets the story. Or like it resets the fight, rather. But it's not like you failed. You got to go back and do all this over again. And then same thing with the very last boss. You have your 4 characters and then 2 NPCs that don't have their own stats. So they don't go down. They heal you and then they do a ton of damage. So it's like, for all of the big set piece fights, there's some kind of support in that so that you're not getting screwed over by like a bad party situation, but you still have to like work with what you've got. So I really appreciate that as somebody who's not like the best with, well, I don't understand what this move does the best, and I'm going to try this move instead. But like the more you kind of trial and error, you really learn to maximize what you can do, and then you get to sit back and enjoy the story. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, I have it installed. I played it briefly, and it's like there's so much that I have installed that is like I definitely installed it when the Akira Toriyama news happened, like how long ago now? A month? 2 months?
Yeah,
jeez.
A month now.
Yeah, I know it happened in March. So I was like, I know it's like that's one of Square Enix's most beloved games, and I know like for many, and there's a cuteness to it that's just so appealing that one day I'll get there. I know that just knowing that it's 100+ hour game that I'm like, do I need it right now? But it's like
it is 100% a game that I'm glad it has so many quality of life for. Just put it down for months and then come back, and they have an entire like, here's a paragraph of what you did and what we're going to next, and then there's a quick button that pulls up your map, and then very detailed instructions on what to do next.
Perfect. That's amazing. So yeah, that's like The Witcher 3. It's kind of like what Witcher 3 did.
Exactly.
How that game kind of like built into its own game, like kind of like a recap if you're like if you stop playing for a while and then come back. So all right, so now that's all you played, right, Paul?
Yep, that's pretty much it.
All right, so now we move to quite a few news stories, especially one that was it was interesting watching it all like collapse and burn in real time and then try to rebuild itself. So press X
for some news.
And here I am alone cutting in because, kind of like we mentioned in the episode, we recorded very early, episode 18/149, and how it usually happens if we record so early in a week, it's gonna always happen that something huge or humongous is gonna happen literally the day after we recorded, and it's happened before with our 2022 episode for everyone that has been listening for a long time, when me and Paul recorded our most anticipated games for 2022, and then the day after the Activision Blizzard acquisition was announced, and we had to like react immediately. So this time, instead of this being a cut-in to be like a reaction, I'm just cutting it into the episode that we recorded early, and just start with the news. Now, because we definitely have to talk about this. I definitely needed to talk about this. Paul couldn't be here, but I was seething. I was like, I'm going to cover this because this is going to go live at the same time as everything else goes live now. So now the official first story before you go to official story number 1 later in the episode. So story by Chris Collin over at VGC News. Xbox is shutting down Arkane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and 2 other Bethesda studios. So Arkane, Tango, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse Games will all be closing down, with some staff joining other teams, according to a memo sent to staff. Staff were told the news over email by Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty. A copy of the message was first reported at IGN. Booty told staff that the decision was based on a reprioritization of titles and resources, and that some employees will be realigned to other teams and others laid off. Today I'm sharing changes we're making to our Bethesda and ZeniMax teams, Booty's email reads. These changes are grounded in prioritizing high-impact titles and further investing in Bethesda's portfolio of blockbuster games and beloved worlds which you have nurtured over many decades. To double down on these franchises and invest to build new ones requires us to look across the business to identify the opportunities that are best positioned for success. This reprioritization of titles and resources means a few teams will be realigned to others, and that some of our colleagues will be leaving us. Booty goes on to detail the changes affecting the 4 studios. Arkane Austin, the studio behind Redfall, will close, with some members of the team joining other studios to work on projects across Bethesda. Redfall's previous update will be its last, and as we end all development on the game, Booty said. The game and its servers will remain online for players to enjoy, and we will provide make-good offers to players who purchase the hero DLC. Japan-based Tango Gameworks, previously responsible for The Evil Within, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Hi-Fi Rush, will also close, with Booty adding that Hi-Fi Rush will continue to be available to players on the platforms it is today. Little parenthesis, a little message that just kind of like as a reference that I think it was last week that the Nintendo Switch version of that game was kind of rated. So kind of that's basically I'm saying don't expect it there now. It's just going to be on Xbox and PS5. Alpha Dog, the studio behind Mighty Doom, will be closing too, with Mighty Doom closing down on August 7th. We will be turning off the ability for players to make any purchases in the game, Booty said. Finally, Roundhouse Games, which itself was formed following the closure of Human Head Studios, will be closing down, and the team will be joining ZeniMax Online Studios. Roundhouse has played a key role in many of our recent game launches and bringing them into ZOS, the ZeniMax Online Studios, to work on the Elder Scrolls Online will mean we can do even more to grow the world that millions of players call home, Booty wrote. As well as the presumed layoffs at Arkane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and Alpha Dog, Booty also told staff that a small number of roles across select Bethesda publishing and corporate teams will also be eliminated. These changes are not a reflection of the creativity and skill of the talented individuals at these teams or the risk they took to try new things, he added. I acknowledge that these changes are also disruptive to the various support teams across ZeniMax and Bethesda to bring our games to market. We are making the tough decisions to create capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on our priority games. Booty goes on to tell staff that Bethesda remains one of the key pillars of Xbox, despite the team closures. As we align our plans and resources to best set ourselves up for success in this complex and changing industry, our teams across Arkane Leon, Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, Machine Games, ZeniMax Online Studios, and the Bethesda publishing and corporate teams will be well positioned to build new IP, explore new game concepts, and expand on our existing franchises, he wrote. Microsoft confirmed in January that 1,900 staff would be laid off across Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, and Xbox. According to head of gaming's Phil Spencer at the time, the decision had been made after Microsoft and Activision Blizzard's leadership teams set priorities, identify areas of overlap, and ensure that we are all aligned for the best opportunities for growth. It is not yet clear if these newly announced Bethesda studio closures are considered part of these 1,900 layoffs or an entirely new set of cuts. So, before I give my thoughts on that, I just kind of want to read some words from Dinga Bakava, which is the head studio head and director for Arkane Leon, who is the director of Dishonored, Deathloop, and the upcoming Blade game, and it's also been made a separate story written by Andy Robinson. A fucking gut stab. Arkane boss criticizes Microsoft execs for studio closures. So, on Tuesday, the Xbox maker told staff at 4 studios, including Redfall maker Arkane Austin, that they are planned for closure. Games boss Matt Booty claimed that some staff would be moved to other teams and others would be laid off. Bakava, the creative director of the critically acclaimed Deathloop and currently working on Blade, responded to the news on X with an unusually frank and critical message than we are used to seeing from somebody running a first-party studio. This is absolutely terrible, he wrote. Permission to be human. To any executive reading this, friendly reminder that video games are an entertainment cultural industry and your business as a corporation is to take care of your artists and entertainers and help them create value for you. He added, don't throw us into the gold fever gambits. Don't use us as strawmen for miscalculations, blind spots. Don't make our work environments Darwinist jungles. You say we make you proud when we make a good game. Make us proud when times are tough. We know you can. We've seen it before. For now, great teams are sunsetting before our eyes again, and it's a fucking gut stab. Leon is safe, but please be tactful and discerning about all of this, and respect affected folks' voice, and leave it room to be heard. It's their story to tell, their feelings to express. It's, I don't ever, from this point onward, ever want to hear or even accept any arguments that Xbox is a for-developer company, that all this consolidation that it went through over this past 4 years, first by acquiring Bethesda and then going through the ordeal of acquiring Activision Blizzard for like 1.5 year, that made covering news so exponentially boring and depressing and tiring, hearing them trying to make their case for why they wanted to like spend all that money to acquire these studios. I don't ever want to hear ever again that they have the money and these are that Microsoft is the company that's worth stewarding these studios, because it's just clear that they're just fucking incompetent. It's like, I basically have run any goodwill that I held for the Phil Spencers, the Sarah Bonds, the Matt Booties, the Aaron Greenbergs, this leadership team that has remained in Xbox for like a fucking decade, and even have barely done anything to really make Xbox like succeed since then. Obviously, they prevented the tailspin that started under Don Matrick, but I've never seen any leadership team basically fail upwards and continuously being like championed by like a fervent fan base that has loved making excuses after excuses after excuses to this team that failed to launch a console with like a first party game, like has been like completely inept at trying to nurture a first party portfolio with everything that they have acquired compared to its competitors. They try to make excuses of trying to like reshuffle like how games are being purchased or like what the metrics of success are, just because like they're losing. And so many people have tried to like bought into kind of like that mentality, and it's just clear that all of that has just been nonsense. Like, this forever cements that the Game Pass model just didn't work. Because think about it this way: Game Pass was supposed to be like this tell-all solution that was gonna allow for creativity to be fostered for these studios to finally be able to like do their quirky creative games and don't have to worry about selling them, because Game Pass was gonna take care of that, right? It's just very clear to me that them pursuing to tooth and nail acquiring Activision Blizzard has fundamentally kind of like changed Microsoft for the worse now, because it's like it's very clear that now investors had look over Xbox and now they're all over the same, which means that the worst is happening now. It's like Microsoft is gonna become the most banal, like safe place that is gonna try to make Call of Duty work, because they gotta like try to recoup the $70 billion that they invested on that damn company, which means that everything that they try to acquire beforehand is like now it's in the, I feel like it's all in danger. It's like I really have like very fearful for like the more quirky studios that they acquired, like Ninja Theory, Double Fine, because it's like, if Hi-Fi Rush, the best exclusive Xbox ever had in like 10 years almost, beloved almost by everyone, like a surprise shadow drop, an actual award-winning title, won more like individual awards than Spider-Man 2, just to kind of give an idea of what that did, wasn't successful enough, and then they had to close the studio. Like, how does that happen? And the worst part, Tango Gameworks is your only Japanese studio that you own, that you managed to own because of kind of like the wholesale way that they acquired ZeniMax, and that was kind of like included as part of the package. They keep, like, Phil Spencer had kept saying, like, no, we want to like we're aiming at Japan. We want to like go to Japan. We want to like strengthen our relationship with the Japanese brand, because we've been doing so bad in Japan. I'm like, you keep saying that, and now you close Japan. I was like, what is even your goal now? So it is so funny. It's like all of this happened. Of course, all this disaster for Xbox has to have happened when I bought a freaking Series X on sale in December, thinking that things were gonna start like slowly turning around. And just look what an absolute shit show it's been. That is like, I really feel bad for Hellblade, because it's like they've dug themselves such a hole. There is barely any trust now with it, like for Xbox as like a company. Like, what is even Division now? It's like all the good guy facade that they try to play up for like years just completely went out the window. And if that was already like at a low, if they're already down and out, when they did the business update podcast when they revealed the 4 games that were gonna make it multi-platform, is like if there was already uncertainty, this happening almost to the year of what happened with Redfall, and them saying that it's like, yeah, it's our fault, we're not gonna close Arkane Austin. It's like, we're gonna reinvest in them because like we'll believe in them, and then now closing them, and then closing the studio that gave you your best game in years, is just like, good luck, Xbox. Is like if more people flock out at this point, is like, it's more than earned, because it's like, I have never seen a studio like a company be given this much rope and just consistently like stumble and step on the rake over and over and over and over again. That I think I really don't even have it in me to try to like even praise them. Like, it's just so tiring. I'm just so tired at this point. It's like, how often I've just been like this. They're almost there. They're almost there. They're almost out of the hole. They finally kind of like, it's all this slow build up of them trying to build up something. It's like, it's just clear. The leadership is fucking incompetent. It just is. Because it's like, how do these people still have a job? Like, it's time. Like, it is time. It's like, people is like, stop praising whatever Phil Spencer is doing and all, and hold their feet to the fire, because they have to respond for this. Because it's like, now it's like, so quickly now they're on an Embracer path now, if they had to really close that. Because and anyone says, no, but Microsoft's got the money, they're this $3 trillion value company. Is like, if they really had that much money, if they had all this much money to spend on Activision Blizzard, they would have had the money to be able to take care of the things that they acquired. They clearly didn't. They just wanted to really consolidate. So this just exposes Microsoft as a company, and I will never ever hold water for them ever again. So I'll still try to maximize whatever I can get use out of my Xbox. Like, I still have that Game Pass going there, so, but it's like I will never like think of them as kind of like a potential trailblazer from the industry when they act like this, and they have just been stumbling like this. It's just completely ridiculous. So, and then also, funny enough, also the same day another news thing dropped from another different competitor, and this is Nintendo. So this is also a story by Tom Ivan from BGC. Nintendo's president reportedly describes its next-gen console as Switch Next model. So, in a message released to coincide with the publication of the company's financial results on Tuesday, Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa confirmed plans to announce the successor to the Nintendo Switch during its current fiscal year ending in March 2025. And during Nintendo's earnings call, Furukawa was reportedly asked if the next-gen console is something brand new. Switch Next model is the proper way to describe it, he replied, according to David Gibson, senior research analyst at MST Financial. While official word on the concept of the console may still be some months away, a series of leaks have previously suggested it will represent an evolution of the Switch rather than a revolution in design terms. After development kits for Nintendo's next console were provided to key partner studios, BGC sources claimed last summer that Switch 2 would be another hybrid system that can be connected to a TV or played as a handheld. He was also recently claimed that Switch 2 will continue to have Joy-Con controllers, but that they'll be able to, larger than the current consoles and will use magnetic suction to connect to it rather than the existing rail technology. So, and it's been claimed that the new console will be backwards compatible with physical and digital Switch games too. So basically, now we have the confirmation that now we're slowly starting the transition over to when they're going to be announcing the new Nintendo Switch. It's clear that they're not going to... Usually classic Nintendo fashion, when they move from one console to the next, they just want to like embrace a big gimmick just to say like this huge innovation. And it's clear that they're going to play things a little bit more conservatively because the Nintendo Switch was just such a massive success. I think in this same financial report, the Nintendo Switch is now at 141 million units sold, which is just 19 million away from like reaching the PS2, which recently got updated sales numbers for 160 million by Jim Ryan on his way out. So there's like no one can deny like the modern success of the Switch. And they also announced that they are not going to talk about this in the Nintendo Direct that they're going to be holding on June, but they're going to be talking about software. So whatever they talk about then, like, please, I keep saying, there's like maybe old school ports are the things that are going to be carrying them, because by the time they do that Direct in June, I think Luigi's Mansion will be the only thing that they will have left that they have announced. So please give me the Zelda, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess. Please. I just want them in the Switch. I just want the entire collection under one system, especially if it's going to be backwards compatible. So now, officially, we're now in the fiscal year period where this Switch 2 will be announced. If I'm a betting man, we'll hear about the system in October. Kind of like we did in October 2016 when they revealed the Nintendo Switch for the first time next to that Red Dead 2 trailer. And it will probably release by March. Kind of like, I think they're going to play it the exact same way. I just hope that the software lineup that they have planned is just equally strong, because they're not going to be able to launch with a Zelda this time, because they already launched the sequel to the last launch game. So, hoping for that 3D Mario, or maybe even a Metroid Prime 4. I would love that. So with that, like, this is the addendum that I'm adding to this week's episode of the Xbox, and now we're going to what we originally recorded as the first news stories that I recorded with Paul. So take it away, past me. Story number 1, Paul, by Chris Collion over at BGC. PlayStation U-turns after Helldivers 2 Steam backlash scraps mandatory PSN account linking. So PlayStation has delivered a U-turn and scrapped its plans to require PlayStation 2 players on Steam to sign in with a PlayStation Network account. The requirement was present when the game originally launched, but after its unexpected early success led to severe technical issues, it was temporarily removed. Last week, Sony stated that the requirement would be returning on May 30, and that all players would need to have linked their Steam and PlayStation Network accounts by June 4th. The news was met with huge backlash from players, and the game was hit with over 100,000 negative reviews on Steam in less than 48 hours. The negativity continued over the weekend when the game was pulled from over 150 countries on Steam, due to them not having access to the PlayStation Network. However, in a new tweet posted by the official PlayStation account on X, the company has acknowledged this error and said it scrapped the plans to require a PSN account for the Steam version of the game. Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update, it wrote. The May 6 update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support for Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans. The news was met with relief by Johan Pilesdet, the CEO of Helldivers 2 developer Arrowhead, who thanked the fans for forcing the change in PlayStation for relenting. Firstly, I am impressed by the willpower of the Helldivers 2 community and your ability to collaborate, he wrote on X. Secondly, I want to thank our partners and friends at PlayStation for quickly and effectively making the decision to leave PSN linking optional. We together want to set a new standard for what a live game is, and how developers and community can support each other to create the best game experiences. The change already appears to be making an impact on Steam, where user reviews have started to become more positive again. Whereas user reviews were 95% negative on Friday, 96% negative on Saturday, and 98% negative on Sunday, so far the reviews are far more balanced. Of the 28,000 reviews submitted today, only 52% were negative. At the time of writing, the game is still unavailable in the more than 150 countries it was pulled out from on Steam, but it appears that access will be restored to those areas in the near future. You were the first one, Paul, that noted that posted this in our chat, and I remember when I saw it, and I felt the sinking pit in my stomach. I was like,
"Yep,
no way are they doing this now, after all this time." are they really gonna nuke like all the goodwill that they've been having, especially because to me, like, I knew that requiring PSN was gonna be hard because I knew that PSN is not widely available everywhere, but Steam was.
I didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
I knew it was like, oh yeah, quite a few countries, but then when somebody did the math and it was like 177 countries, and by comparison, there are like 190 at all available through Steam, I think.
Yeah.
That is like 90% of the world,
Mm-hmm.
as far as that goes. So that is just insane that Sony looked at that and went, yep, I think we're willing to cut all of these out.
Yeah. It felt like such a mind-boggling own goal because obviously it's clear why they wanted to do this. Helldivers 2, besides Pal World, which exploded so early and then went quiet, Helldivers 2 is the feel-good story of this year. It is the surprise success that everyone has been championing. The community has been so tight-knit and so like lovely, like to see it grow together and kind of like just embrace the craziness of whatchamacallit, embrace the craziness of kind of like the democracy fighting and all that of this game in a way that made it kind of like one of the more fun communities to kind of see it just embrace the randomness of how that game kept updating over time enough that I was like I was championing this game as kind of like, yeah, this is like if we're in a live service future, I would rather live service games kind of lean more in this direction than fake MMOs. I was actually talking with Travis recently because he just he's about to finish his Fallout 76 re-review for IGN, and we were talking about like how underwhelmed he was about the free editions, and kind of we were having a conversation about like live service has become kind of like a synonymous for developers wanting to do an MMO but not do an MMO. They want to have their cake and eat it too. That you either are an MMO or you don't. And I feel like Helldivers 2 is a perfect example of wanting to play in this space but not wanting to be an MMO. They carved their own niche and it hit. And it hit so well. There was a reason why there was so overwhelming positivity around this game before all this thing happened. And then when all of that happened, it was insane. It was like it was us witnessing like they're literally killing their golden goose in front of our very eyes, and for what? Because they wanted everyone to sign up for PSN so that by the time we got to their financial reports, that happened literally. They're gonna happen in like 13 days because halfway through May, where they do like the full year.
That big influx of
like
look at how many users we have.
Exactly.
Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how like you took all the or everybody in the situation took all the subtlety out of it, where it's like you could have made the argument for a lot of other things being like a goose that lays the golden eggs, and then you have like the executives that kind of kill it, and it's like some people just don't have like the ability to really quantify that. But here is like probably the most blatant example of a game that is so beloved, so available, so accessible, so just generally fun to play with your friends. And despite it all, Sony still went, yeah, we're gonna force the developer to put this in here, because that's what they signed. We're gonna make it work. And I'm so glad on the back end that we were able to bully the company so severely that they went, all right, no, we've learned. And even more so, I think one of the biggest reasons for success was the developers specifically changing tactics and going, please review bomb our game so we have ammunition to point to Sony and say stop it.
Yeah, and you know what, that worked because Helldivers 2 is one of the best-selling games of this year. The majority of the bulk of the sales were made on PC, not on PlayStation. And having an overwhelming
so many people.
Yeah, and more like this. Any potential new customers wanted to come this game on PC because that's where definitely like more growth had been happening more than on console. Why would you buy something that has overwhelmingly negative reviews? So it's like that's that really kind of hit in a way that really showed the power of Steam and Steam user reviews. Why is like the power of like of the people making their voice heard in that way Even though obviously there were a few people that were crossing the line, and that will never be like accepted. Kind of like there were some people that were even attacking the community managers for no reason, and no fault of their own. But it's like they were able to like make their voice heard in a place that really like hit the dagger, because whether people like it or not, that PlayStation really wants to be on PC. In an era where a Spider-Man game now costs $300 million to make, the only way for you to like really recoup now is not through exclusives anymore. Is that you also have to be like in the PC space, because it's like that's the area where that thing will live in perpetuity regardless of where the console is at a certain point. It's like and them fumbling it like this with some, especially with their biggest success to date in that space, incredible befuddlement that I could not believe. Here's what's so funny: is like this felt like a Jim Ryan move, even though Jim Ryan's no longer in the building. He left in April 1st. It's so funny, kind of like Jim Ryan style blunders are still kind of part of Sony DNA, even now that he's been long gone, and we're right now in the Hiroki Totoki kind of like interim times. But I tell you, they were able to reverse course, but the damage for this thing is gonna be felt for a long time, because it's like every new PC release that is remotely multiplayer will come with this asterisk now. If it launches but to surprise success and they have to shut off like links, will they want to like then enforce that account linking? Because here's also to kind of give some devil's advocate thing. Other companies do this. To play an Xbox game on Steam, you have to sign up to your Xbox account while you're on Steam. Some Ubisoft games, you have to sign up to the Ubisoft account, or even EA, you have to sign up for EA Play. So it's like Sony is not. Let's just say it's like this is not just a unique situation. Many of them do that. Here's also a different thing. It's like there's ways to create many accounts in those other things for that to not be an issue. PSN was limited, and this was sold beyond where they were beyond countries that had no PSN access. Many would have to create American accounts to even have PSN in countries like in all of Africa. So it's like there was already a certain limitation. And the problem was that if you wanted to create like an American PSN account and link it to like a whatever Steam account, you would get banned. So it's like there was so much like there was so much red tape in what a mess PSN is in account creation, that's why this became a bigger issue now that they wanted to reinstate it than other games that you need to sign in for those accounts first. That's kind of like the difference there. And also the fact that they went so many months without them enforcing it. That's kind of like the worst part. Is like they could have immediately been like, okay, we're ready to fix this, put them as like they let the game being sold everywhere for like 3 months before pulling it. That's what made it shitty. So
I can't believe that we, thank God, managed to avoid it for this game specifically, and I pray that it doesn't have to rear its ugly head again later on. Like, I can't remember what situation it was where it was like, hey, we're gonna do this thing, and everyone hated it, and they said, all right, we're gonna stop doing this thing, and then like a month later they did it quietly and nobody complained.
I'm trying to remember because that sounds so familiar.
I remember what that was, and I can't remember exactly the situation that happened for it, but like it's happened before. And
for Sony specifically, I remember this one. Horizon Forbidden West announced around the launch of the PS5. It was supposed to launch within the year of the PS5 alongside Miles Morales and another one, and they were like, okay, these games are coming to PS4, and if you buy the PS4 version, you get the free PS5 version. Horizon Forbidden West gets delayed, but then they announced the complete digital deluxe editions, the executive editions, and then they announced the next gen like double pack of like buy this to get both versions, and everyone was like, wait a second, you said this thing was gonna get a free upgrade. What the heck happened? And that happened like on a Friday, and then that Monday Jim Ryan was like, yeah, you're right, we said that, so everyone that buys it on PS4 is gonna get the PS5 version for free, but from now on, every upgrade is $10. That's literally what they did. Like they had to walk back, like them trying to sell like 2 versions of the game, hoping that people were gonna forget that they had said that they were gonna give it for free. So this is not the first time that Sony has said something and they walked it back. Another one that Sony did was they wanted to shut out the PS3 store forever. People relented and talk crap about them because it's like we cannot believe like you trick your history like that, and then they're like, you know what, we're not gonna shut out the PS3 store. That's gonna be remain open indefinitely, but you won't be able to buy stuff with your credit card anymore. You have to do PSN money first. So it's like Sony already has this generation. Sony has been always doing. We want to do something and then we have to walk it back. This has been this generation for Sony, even though they've been winning. It's just constant easy PR screw ups that shouldn't be a problem. So, oh man, it's like it's Sony be wilding, I tell you. But I'm glad that the democracy won in this one, and to me it was just so sad because I was like, Paul is literally watching his game of the year so far crash and burn within his very eye.
It would have gone like. It would have gotten such a hit in my list if that had happened, just for like principle. But I'm so glad that I can keep it there for now.
Yeah.
That's happening. Supposedly there's going to be a new war bond that has a lot of the stuff that I like out of it. I don't know if I will yet, but
we'll see about it. Yeah, it's like incredible to see, but I'm glad it was fixed. But it should have, like, again, with this PR nightmares that Sony eventually finds out, it should have never been a problem in the first place. They can be so dumb. So story number 2 now, Paul, again, because these are the kind of stories that just never end. Story by Tom Ivan over at VGC. Vast majority of Private Division staff reportedly laid off by Take-Two. That's according to GamesIndustry.biz, which received word of additional layoffs at Private Division following reports this week that the company is set to close internal development studios Roll 7, Rollerdrome, Ollie World, and Intercept Games, which made the very popular Kerbal Space program too. Established in 2017 to publish games from top creative talent in the growing independent development landscape, Private Division also has an office in Singapore, according to its website. Its published titles include Panache Digital Games' Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey, Obsidian's The Outer Worlds, Piccolo Studios' After Us, The Good Fabric, Saltia Chronicles, and Evening Star's Penny's Big Breakaway. Private Division also recently launched Moon Studios' No Rest for the Wicked in early access and plans to release Weta Workshop's Tales of the Shard later this year. It announced last May that it had signed a new action or adventure IP from Pokemon studio Game Freak, codenamed Project Bloom, which was expected to be released during Take-Two's fiscal year ending in March 2026. Last month, Take-Two said it planned to lay off 5% of its workforce, or around 600 people, as part of cost-cutting measures that would also result in the cancellation of unnamed projects. Commenting on reports of studio closures and layoffs this week, a Take-Two spokesperson said on April 16th, Take-Two announced a cost reduction program to identify efficiencies across its business and to enhance the company's margin profile while still investing for growth. As part of these efforts, the company is rationalizing its pipeline and eliminating several projects in development and streamlining its organizational structure, which will eliminate headcount and reduce future hiring needs. The company is not providing additional details on this program. On April 18th, Private Division successfully launched Moon Studios' No Rest for the Wicked. The label continues to make updates to Kerbal Space Program 2 and plans to release Weta Workshop's Game Studios' Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game, in the second half of 2024. That was the end of their statement. I've mentioned it like in our chat, is like independent developers don't get into the publishers. Do not. Rollerdrome was a big hit, like in the indie space 2 years ago. Award-winning, highly reviewed, unique idea of like a like a sports-based game shooter. Now what? Studio got closed. Kerbal Space Program 2, a lot of it has like a fervent community from what I understand. They're closing it. But they said they want to keep like updating it. Who's gonna keep updating it? You close the damn studio. And all for what? For profit. 2K Studios, the studio that makes billions of dollars on NBA 2K alone, and not even mention GTA Online. At a certain point, it's like we have crossed the event horizon in absolute greed, like greediness. Because it's like, how far are we gonna take this before we finally get to the point where closures are actually happening because people are in the red? And that's just, it's so frustrating because it's like, it's never about like, oh yeah, we're not doing well, so we have to readjust. No, we're doing well. We just want to do even more well. Like, a gaming crash can't happen soon enough, I tell you. Like, a crash to hit this like executives like where they live, because it's like they're literally ruining the gaming industry by doing this.
Completely. We go back to the comparison for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's team. The only reason they managed to make this at the budget they did and at the speed they did was because it's all people that have worked together for years. Like it seems like people can't quantify how important it is camaraderie and closeness and familiarity are with a work environment. And I didn't think that was something that needs to be explicitly stated, because, you know, we're in the human experiment and we understand how people work here and there. But God forbid you work in a business long enough and you know how to do things better because you know how to deal with your coworkers and talk about things, and you use the same stuff all the time instead of having to constantly redo what programs you're using and how to communicate and who's even my boss. And now that I'm in this kind of situation, I'm like,
it hits different for you. Basically. And back after a stupid internet disconnection, as you were saying, Paul.
Yeah, what was the last thing that I said right before I started cutting out?
Because you were talking about kind of like the consistency of having a workforce together and all that, and then I said something about you would feel it more because of you having recently been laid off, and then I think that's when we cut.
So yeah, like, just to talk from a personal experience now, because I can do that. The power that I was able to offer my company after like a year was already exponential because of my knowledge of the personnel and the programs that we use specifically. And now I have to do the entire process over again. Certainly I'm speaking a little selfishly because I'm slightly upset about it.
Yeah.
But also, just from a company standpoint, you think about it, you have to invest in somebody to get them on, invest all of that time in it. And because you got, as a company, you got impatient with the results of the person, getting rid of them, feeling like you could find that again elsewhere. Now you have to invest that money and that time again to another person that is also going to be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, just to pay them less. Just to pay them less.
Less. And to not have to offer like the same benefits and stuff that you were able to offer me. It's like, is that really worth it to give up on a living, breathing person that is getting better at their job every day and learning more? They've already also been given so much access to personal information from your team. Like, if I was a worse person, I could have done something horrible to that company had I chosen to. And it's like, how many times are you willing to make that risk on a new person you don't know versus somebody you've known for several months or a year at least? Same thing, even more for all these people that have so much experience in all of these companies. It's heartbreaking to watch these people go through the situation. Even like, somebody gave me a great caption where they said, this is a great example of, you can still drop a best-selling game that wins awards. I think BAFTA, at least one.
BAFTA. Yeah, BAFTA.
And so you still get all laid off. Where does that, like, you can do it all right, you can do it all perfect, you can be the best, and it's still not enough, because the bottom line is the bottom line.
Yeah, it's what I always kept saying about Spider-Man 2. Again, like we mentioned, like how that game cost 300+ million to make, sold 10 million copies, the fastest selling game that studio has made. I don't like that game as much, but a lot of people did. It sold a lot. It reviewed so well. It has a 90 on Metacritic still. It won a big at the DICE Awards, even though no one else gave them awards. Didn't matter. First layoffs that Insomniac had to suffer in its almost 20-year studio, almost 20+ year in existence, all because of the bottom line. It's like everything is broken, and I'm really hoping that this 2 years of like so many of these industries, like going through these brutal cuts, it's slowly gonna start an awakening or a reawakening, that there has to be a different way than the current way, because it's like it's so inhumane and unsustainable. Fuck capitalism, even though capitalism is like the way that this works. Like fuck this current version of capitalism, because like I'm getting sick and tired of companies that are clearly doing well, like doing this kind of cuts. Like that will never be acceptable for me ever, because like the only layoffs that I even barely accepted and that still sucked was what happened with Ascension Studios with Immortals of Avium. They had to cut because the game didn't do well. Yeah, that sucked, but I understood why it had to happen. The game didn't make it to market. The market had to like they had to like respond to the response to their product how it didn't market. Those are the layoffs that, while sad, are the only ones that are like acceptable compared to like these millions of people that have gotten laid off from companies that are clearly doing so well. That's kind of like that's been like the worst part. So rampant greed, and I would want something to like cause a reckoning, like an absolute reckoning to change this.
Because I pray for it only as if there's any way that we can have it target specifically the executives.
Oh yes,
some kind of financial horrifying thing that just causes them to have to change the way things go. Some kind of like I don't know, law system. I truly don't like. I'm not being facetious when I'm hesitating and trying to suggest things. Like I'm trying to think of what would mess them up and not mess all of these people up. But
yeah, because they're the ones at fault. It's never, rarely is it the employee's fault. Yeah. Rarely. Obviously, there will be some layoffs that are redundant because and also because they are not performing well. It's like we cannot also hide the fact that. I don't believe for a second that the 10,000, the almost 10,000 plus people have gotten laid off now. Like all 10,000 people, like we're all doing like excellent job, but I bet a majority of them were. So it's like it's still something that has to be considered. Like how work shouldn't be this inhumane, especially with how bad the economy is right now, and letting like greed run rampant, kind of like ruin it in almost every industry. So. Because this is going now beyond just like excessive growth that happened during the pandemic. Because I know like part of the layoffs were part of that a lot of like companies really like scaled up when everything felt different during the pandemic. But I feel we have like jumped the shark at a certain point. Like I feel we have moved past the fact that it's been like overgrown for pandemic growth.
Yeah,
I feel it's just more like it's like. We can make even more money. Let's try to use excuses now. So that's how it feels.
It really does.
Yes, in every industry, in literally every industry, that will make people move across the country to just lay them off a year later. Yes, I'm still salty that happened to you. So, right, Paul. Moving on from layoffs. Story number 3 by Chris Collins, also from BGC. Ubisoft free-to-play FPS XDefiant finally gets a release. That I feel like we've known about XDefiant for like 3 years since we started the show. Well, it finally happened.
Part of me wondered if it was even happening at all. But
so the game will go live on May 21st on PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. Paul, that same day is
out of nowhere, man.
Yeah, and not only that same day is Hellblade 2, and then a few days later is like Paper Mario. It's like May 21st suddenly like this.
Did we just find out about this release date?
Yeah.
So they must have been sitting on this for so long only to say, hey, it's going to launch in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alongside 2 of the bigger releases of the year.
Yeah, last year they had like a beta that went for a while, and they were wanting to release it. They were wanting to release it last year, but the game failed certification. So they had to do something to make it pass certification, and that delayed the product. So according to Ubisoft, the game's pre-season will start on that day, May 21st, and will last for 6 weeks before the first proper season begins. During pre-season, players will have access to 14 maps, 5 modes, and 24 weapons, including 44 attachments. It will also feature the previously confirmed 5 factions from different Ubisoft series: Libertad from Far Cry, Phantoms from Ghost Recon, Echelon from Splinter Cell, Cleaners from The Division, and DedSec from Watch Dogs. DedSec will only be available after unlocking or purchasing. Following the preseason, XDefiant will have a new season every 3 months, with year one's 4 seasons, each adding 1 more faction, 3 new weapons, and 3 new maps. Each season will have a 90-tier battle pass. The game has seen numerous delays over the months. In June 2023, Ubisoft stated that XDefiant was expected to launch later that summer, with a final open session taking place on June 21st to the 23rd, after which the game would be released. By September, when it was clear that this summer window was going to be missed, executive producer Mark Rubin said that an October 2023 release appeared likely due to the game appeared unlikely due to the game failing Microsoft and Sony's console certification tests. It was then announced in October that the game was being delayed again after its beta exposed some issues that had to be addressed before the game's preseason could be released. The game was initially revealed in July 2021 as Tom Clancy's XDefiant. At the time, it only included factions from Tom Clancy franchise's Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon, and The Division. But in March 2022, Ubisoft announced that it was dropping the Tom Clancy branding and introducing additional factions from its wider catalog of IP. The beta response for this game was very positive, because a lot of people were saying that because Mark Rubin, the executive producer of this game, he worked on Call of Duty once upon a time, Infinity War, Call of Duty. And a lot of people have been saying that the current direction of where Modern Warfare has gone, or Modern Call of Duty has gone, especially in the wake of Warzone, is not many people's cup of tea. And this game feels and plays like Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 2, like those old Call of Duty games. So that's why there was a lot of positivity. Now we'll get to see how it goes now that it's actually a free-to-play Call of Duty game with 15 maps. That's what XDefiant with Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, Watch Dogs, and Division factions. That's what this game is. So, May 21st.
Well, I guess good for them. It's definitely not my style, but I guess when you're Ubisoft and you have that many crazy, powerful IPs, you're just like, let's throw... I mean, you know what? This game coming out in like 2007 would have probably been crazy popular and super revolutionary. It's like, well, you mean we could do like a shooter with all of these like characters and factions from different games in the same studio? Like, just because it's a shooter, I feel like I'm being harsher on it, but and also because it's Ubisoft and they don't deserve praise at all. But I also can see the value of how impressive it is. Kind of weird for them to pick what was it, Far Cry 6's faction of all.
Yeah, La Libertad.
I would think like go for the Far Cry 3 approach maybe, but I don't know. Either way, it's interesting. I guess I'm glad it exists. I'm curious to see what happens, and
I mean, you can try it. It's free.
State story.
Yeah.
No, my time is not free though,
yeah.
So I will not be wasting it on that. But
why not? Since you liked old Call of Duty.
I do, but I'd rather play other things. At this stage in my life, I did like old Call of Duty back then. I've since gone back to old Modern Warfare 2, and I realized I don't think I enjoy this anymore. So
I'm different. I enjoy playing Modern Warfare 2 on Xbox more than I do like modern Call of Duty multiplayer.
I like playing it a little bit slower now because my hands are the way they are. I can't do the crazy quick everything anymore.
And that's what new Call of Duty is, not old one. So
the old one is like breakneck. The new one, the 3. More so getting towards that. That's why I stopped playing it. 2 and 2019 were absolutely slower.
No, that one, those were slower. That's what I say. Like the newer direction that wants everything to go faster post Warzone is why XDefiant got a lot of like praise when people got to try it. Because
I'm thinking more like the 2008 2009 era of Call of Duty versus the 2019 and 2022. I think. So anyway, all that is to say, I don't think I will be wasting my time on it because I don't like the speed. It's just not as fun. Even if my hands weren't like this, it tenses me up there. And for 3 hours, I'm like locked in. I'm doing all this. I can't even have a conversation with anybody. And it's just when I'm trying to unwind, there's different games I'd like to enjoy instead.
Yeah. I would like to revisit this in 15 days. Because you're saying that right now, and I remember you were saying the same about Helldivers too. So, and look where that got, and look where it went. So
I want to be wrong, and I don't. For this specific example, I don't know if I will, just because of the devs and the situation behind it. The mechanics might be great, but I mean, the same thing about the finals, and we'll see how quickly that lasts.
Yeah, the finals is still kind of like ongoing, shockingly.
It is. I just mean like my enjoyment of it, where I was like, okay, I see why some people like this. not going to play it for more than a day.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I'll definitely gotta try it because I didn't get to try the tests, but I saw a lot of positivity about it, about how well it played. So I definitely want to see like if that stays true, because like that's a robust launch for like a free to play multiplayer shooter. 14 maps, 5 modes, and 24 weapons to start. We're trying, so.
Guess let's see.
Yeah. Now, story number 4, also by Tom Ivan over at VGC. Sony is pulling Horizon Zero Dawn from the PlayStation Plus game catalog. It's been claimed that the company is working on a PS5 remaster of the game. While the PS4 game is currently available to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium members, it will leave the service on May 21st. Again, what is it about that day? May 21st, according to its PlayStation Store listing. Here's what's so funny, Paul. Do you remember when May 21st was supposed to, in 2011, was supposed to be the end of the world? According to so many people.
2012.
No, in 2011. There was a 2011.
It?
Yeah, there was a May 21st.
I don't remember that one at all.
Yeah, I remember because there were billboards all over all over the place. Because I remember being like, I thought the end of the world was 2012. Where does this come from? So, yeah. That's the same date that another 25 games will leave the service, including 6 Final Fantasy titles that we read a couple weeks ago. Horizon Zero Dawn's upcoming removal is notable given it's a first-party game and one that has sold over 20 million copies across PS4 and PC, according to Sony. It's insane it sold that much. As reported by Push Square, the last time a game published by Sony left the game catalog was when Spider-Man was removed in May 2023 as part of what the platform holder called a normal content refresh. It was pulled from PlayStation Plus 5 months before the release of its PS5 sequel, Spider-Man 2. And also to add context to that one, PS4 Spider-Man was the one that was removed, and then they sold separately Spider-Man Remastered, and they never put that in the whatchamacallit, at the PlayStation Plus catalog, because Spider-Man Remastered, the only way for you to buy it was through Miles Morales. You had to go inside Miles Morales and press R1 to buy it.
Is that still the case?
Not anymore, because they they removed the PS4 version for PS Plus, and then they sold Remastered now on its own.
Okay.
Or for PS5, right before Spider-Man 2. So they always do these moves, kind of like when they're about to want to sell you something. So, in late 2022, it was reported that Sony was planning to release a remaster of Horizon Zero Dawn for PS5, a claim which BGC was able to corroborate via its own sources at the time. The updated version of the 2017 Guerrilla Games title would feature improved visuals to bring it up to par with its sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, in the form of new character models, lighting, and animations. It was also claimed that the new version of Horizon Zero Dawn would add accessibility features, graphics modes, and quality of life improvements to the gameplay itself. That was just a report that we read late 2022 when we were like, is Sony just literally gonna be remaking stuff that is not even 5 years old? And then removing the complete edition from PS Plus of the PS4 version that already runs at 60 frames, that makes it clear it's real. That absolutely makes it clear it's real. Yeah. And I think the date of when they're pulling it down, I feel a showcase is happening that week.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say it has to coincide with either the release of it or them doing something, because it doesn't make sense to me to take away the ability to purchase a really good game.
Yeah, the thing is that
I don't get that.
Yeah, it's like it's still being it's just being removed from the catalog. That's for PS Plus. You're no longer gonna play it for free. You can still buy it, though. I know, like for example, when they announced Until Dawn was coming back this year with like its PS5 version, like the PS4 version mysteriously disappeared from being sold.
Mysterious.
So yeah, I wonder if like that will tell the tale if like the complete edition is also, which can be bought for $20. I bought it because it's like it has the DLC already built in, and I have to like download it separately, so it's a smaller file size. It's like it if they stop selling it, it's like more clear indication. But to me, it's like just what they did with Spider-Man Remastered, because when they removed the Spider-Man 2018 from the PS Plus catalog, you could still buy the PS4 version. That didn't stop. It's just that they cut the way to give that for free because they were getting ready for another push for them to do this. So I'll say this, during this Vertigo and this thing, I was playing briefly Horizon Zero Dawn again when I kind of heard some of this news, just to check, be like, it's been 7 years. I can't believe it's been 7 years since this thing came out. Let me see how it looks. 80% of that thing still holds up.
Yeah.
20% doesn't. Like there's some. faces, camera transitions, some tiny little details, eyes, and all that. I'm like, okay. I'm slowly starting to see like some areas where they can clearly like justify quote unquote a remaster. It's still not like, to me, it's like it's still a waste of time considering how good that game still looks overall. Again, kind of like I say, 80% of that thing holds up. How many games hold up like for an 80%, like older games?
Not at all.
Exactly. So it's like, to me, it's like, does this mean the TV show for Horizon that they said they're working on Netflix is getting close to being released? Or they're like trying to like synergize?
That part doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because why would you do all of this so early unless it's ready to come out? I would say like a trailer for
Last of Us
the
did that.
show.
Last
No,
of
I
Us
mean
did
like
that.
the trailer should have come out before all of this transition went down, I would think.
Yeah, for the show.
Yeah, if you really want to do synergy, is you get the trailer to come out, and then that's what gets people to go back to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And either you have the original game available for everybody to play on PlayStation Plus to make that as easy a barrier of entry as possible, or you have the new one come out, and then they go, "Oh, the show is really cool. Let's go check out this game now."
To be fair, Sony has done that already. Last of Us Part 1 released in September. The show launched on January. We still had not seen the full trailer yet of that thing.
Right, that's what I
But
mean.
they were,
like,
but they were preemptively,
because of the timing. This needs to line up a little bit better than what I'm seeing for it to coincide with the show. Is what I mean.
Yeah, it's
So,
like,
we'll
to me, it's like it feels like business as usual for Sony. Wait, this thing went dark for a second.
I'm still here though.
Yeah, it's like it does feel business as usual for Sony, that they really their synergy is like they launched and they announced and launched the game product like way before like the actual TV show like actually makes it to market. The only time that they were not able to do that was for Twisted Metal, because whatever Twisted Metal they were working on apparently got canceled. But like with Last of Us, it's just clear what happened, because we had not seen the first look of that show until like a month before the show was launching, but we had seen images of the show. We had seen kind of like tiny little clips and like montages that they were launching, but they preemptively launched The Last of Us Part 1 on that September. And then, boom, game launch. The show launched on January. The sales tripled. So it's like, it's rare where it's like they launch the new game at the same time. They always preempt. So, and they absolutely don't want people to play the subscription based ones, because they want to make the money. And it clearly worked for them. They're so like, it's an absolute greed move, and it worked because a lot of people they were like, oh yeah, so this is based on a game. Let me go to the store. Oh look, it's like it has the same name and has a PS5 logo. Grab this. That's why they did it. So, and same with like season 2 of Last of Us comes out next year. They already put out Last of Us Part 2 Remastered this year. It's like it's already there. Just for it to be found, like however it wants to be found. So I am curious. I don't know, like, if you're going to buy it because you're a raging misogynist that doesn't like the Horizon series. I'm just kidding. But I would say, like, the more I thought about it, I do like the first game more than I like the second one on its story. But I like the mechanical improvements and visual improvements of the second one. And then taking that to the first story can be kind of appealing to me, because the first story is more memorable for me. But it also will depend on price and release timing. And if they do the Last of Us Part 2 thing, that they gave us the free upgrade for people that owned it. So
and they need to maybe do some work on their characters as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's the thing, like the faces in the second one were all excellent. It's the first one that were rough.
No. The face is fine. I mean, like, specifically character writing work for like the TV show is what I mean. Like,
oh yes.
They want to like update it just a little bit. I'm not going to complain here.
Yeah, I will wonder how they can make it memorable, or like what even that TV show is gonna cover. If it's gonna be straight adaptation, or if it's like a Fallout situation where it's like it exists in the world. So, or if it's like Last of Us, it's just a straight up adaptation. So, and that worked to that show's benefit and also to its detriment. It kept getting weaker as it went along. So, remember, it was like it started really strong, and then later on we were like, these parts were better in the game. I remember it was like we kept feeling that as it kept going. So, yeah, we'll see. It's like, it all depends, price, release timing, and how impressive the upgrades actually look. But Horizon Forbidden West was certainly looker. It was the best looking game of that year. So, but not the best game.
True.
And I'm the simp, people. Remember, I used to simp for that game really hard. I'm just talking.
Yes. Yes,
I just
you did.
yeah. I'm just talking how it
Speaking
is.
of which, Fortnite has an adorable archer-themed character in their battle pass. By the way,
Right now, I'll definitely
Artemis.
check it out. Yeah.
She's got like purple curly hair. It
Mm-hmm.
nearly got me, but I think it's too high for me to realistically get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. So final story, Paul. Before we move to the quick headlines, Resident Evil 9 could be released in January. It's claimed. Story by Jordan Miller over at BGC. According to Dusk Golem and X, the Resident Evil 9 should be revealed soon and is set for release in early 2025. Dusk Golem has a strong track record of revealing confidential information about upcoming video games before they are made public. The possible delay I had heard murmurs about can be pushed aside, they said. Resident Evil 9 should be revealed pretty soon and released next year. If what I had heard previously holds true, it should be in January. It'll have had about 7 years in development. The insider claims that Resident Evil 9 started development in 2018 as a potential 8th entry in the main series. At this time, Resident Evil Village was seen as a spin-off project, before eventually becoming the 8th main entry. This title, informally referred to as Resident Evil 9, also reportedly has the biggest budget and longest development time of any Resident Evil game to date. Capcom has yet to publicly announce the next mainline entry in the Resident Evil series, nor has it announced the next of its Resident Evil remakes. Golem previously claimed that Resident Evil 9 could be an open-world title. At the time of the claim, they said Dragon's Dogma 2 expanded RA Engine functionality for open-world games. The two other games building on this tech are Monster Hunter Wilds and Resident Evil 9.
Please don't do that.
Monster Hunter Wilds, the sequel to Monster Hunter World, was announced in December 2023. The game is set for release in 2025, although Capcom has shared few details about the game. More information about Monster Hunter Wilds will be made public in summer 2024, according to Capcom. So, they usually do this. They put a lot of Resident Evil games in development at the same time. Like, at the same time that 7 started development, 2 and 3 were in development too. Because they kind of want to be like, alright, we're going to put the first person one, but let's do a remake of 2 and 3 in third person to see which ones really hit. And thankfully for them, both games hit. Like, both 7 was well received, but 2 in particular was like monumentally beloved. 3 not so much. But then at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me that both Village and Resident Evil 4 remake and this one also kind of they come in waves. But I'm very interested to see like what a 7-year in development new Resident Evil looks like, especially if this is called 9 and Village was not supposed to be the 8th one, but then it turned out to be the 8th one. Will 9 follow up the story of 8? Like, were they able to rejigger?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Because it's like, when you put everything in development at the same time, it's weird to kind of line up, like, your stories. And also, Resident Evil is so used to not follow up everything immediately. Like, from main entry to main entry. Because of this. Like, Resident Evil 3 was not a follow-up to 2. It was a parallel follow-up. Resident Evil 4 ignored Resident Evil 2, basically, originally. And then Resident Evil 5 finally followed up on Resident Evil 1 with Wesker. And then Resident Evil 6 finally was kind of like trying to follow up everything at once. And then 7 didn't follow up anything at all. Then Village kind of did, as a kind of like retroactive like build up of the entire series. It's a weird one, but I feel it's been enough time for a new Resident Evil game. We obviously got the remake last year, which was excellent, RE4. But for a new one, we like Village. You definitely liked it a lot more than I did. So, what will 9 be?
This is a very good question, honestly. I mean, they did so much of that real setup with the Rose storyline. And honestly, it could go either way on this, because on one hand, it makes me think that was going to be the next main line, Rose, obviously. But then they put that into the DLC, and they kind of like
close the book
it up, and they're like, yeah, okay, she can kind of go off and do her own thing, and we'll just do other stuff. They very emphatically ended certain aspects of that storyline, though, and did not touch the possibility of that coming back. So on one hand, even if it does get coming back without Rose, that's not going to be at all the same storyline.
Yeah.
unless we go back to like playing as Chris again,
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
he was the
because
only one that was like set up, and then we got to play as him a little bit.
yeah, the only like stinger left with Shadows of Rose is the fact that Chris is training Rose.
Right.
It's kind of
So
like that. The
that
Chris is.
does make me think like she might get a Resident Evil 4 style
Hmm.
jump with the like, what was the name of the guy with the power?
The guy with.
Okay,
Sorry.
there we go.
Yeah, you cut there again.
I'm back.
Yes. The guy with the powers. Jake.
Yeah, Jake. Yes.
Yeah. Jake Wesker.
So
Yeah.
it makes me think that they might do something like that, blending the powers with the Resident Evil bread and butter, which is weaponry, of course.
Hmm.
So that's option one, and option two is like they have to reintroduce Leon somehow,
Yeah.
or any of the other characters. I mean, shoot, Jill, Claire,
Yeah, Jill and Claire have been so MIA
Rebecca.
like forever. Yeah, Rebecca. Yeah, Rebecca
Worries
has.
me a little bit, but I also respect their restraint in only including one character
Mhm.
out of all of like the 7 or 8 they have now.
Yeah, with Chris. Yes.
So I do respect that side of it. I would love to see Jill or Claire show back up as like a side character and like take over after Chris. Like he's off doing things, you can hear him on the radio, but then like let us experience more of this alternate storyline of the other characters.
Yeah, the thing is that I would love if they could take another crack at attempting what they attempted with Resident Evil 6. Such a sprawling game with like the different that touch base with the different characters that eventually intersected. That's what Resident Evil 2 PS1 used to be. Like all this like different character like combinations at the same time that eventually intersected. That wasn't quite conveyed in the remake like it did back in the PS1 game. Obviously Resident Evil 6, like, because that was still action Resident Evil. It was like where the Capcom was like astray and didn't know what they wanted that series to be, abandoning its roots, trying to like pursue something more mass market. That's why that's such a malign entry, even though I feel like that thing has held up much better than it gives credit for. I would say it's a bad game that it's fun to play, and it has Matt Mercer as Leon Kennedy, which is so interesting to think about. But I would like that, especially because there's so many characters that I need to like retouch upon, especially with 7 and 8 focusing on the Ethan Winters of it all, and that's done. So that's why I'm like, I would love to see more of like the classics kind of come in like in a new way. So, and if it's an open world, what better way to like include more characters than a bigger playing space? Just saying.
I will say I'm gonna miss the Resident Evil design of environments if they do an open world.
Yeah.
Unless they do like
village style.
I was gonna say like Evil Within, but that works as well actually, where it's like, okay, you kind of get this little region and then you go into the very linear, very puzzle.
You're right. Evil Within 2 was technically open world-ish. So
exactly. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with that one. Like you could kind of have your cake and eat it too, as long as you're very focused with where you implement one versus the other.
Yeah. I want to give the benefit of the doubt of like, show me a new kind of Resident Evil. Like, see, I kind of want to like approach it from that angle. If it really has been in development this long, I want to see like what a new one is, especially after Village. So, with that, Paul, that ends the news section for this week, and now we just have a couple odds and ends with the quick headlines. So, headline number 1: THQ Nordic's 4th annual digital showcase is coming in August. So obviously, like even with all the shenanigans that have been happening over at the Embracer Group and them splitting things up and all that, like THQ Nordic is still kind of like existing within that parameter, and they still have a few games in the AA space that they want announced. So that's definitely coming in August. The other quick headline is Helldivers 2's Polar Patriots War Bond arrives next week. So this happened before. This was announced before the calamity of what happened with Helldivers 2, but I remember we were talking about it in the Discord chat that we had, that some of the things that they announced with this one seemed like more interesting than the last War Bond that they updated that dropped you from the game.
Yep.
And I was
very specifically focusing on less of the this is a support weapon and you need to have other buddies with you, and more of a this is just like a good primary weapon. You get like a cool Magnum Devil May Cry style handgun. You got some other cool armor sets going on. Curious what they're gonna have as passives. So it's more of what I think I was hoping for out of the last one in this one. But we'll see.
Yeah. So the beauty of Helldivers 2 not being a seasonal game, it means that the way they can update their game is quick. Look how quick now they can potentially get you back in. So even though I know that there were some patch notes that they heard that seems like makes it harder for a solo player and more like important to have like a team to play. So that's kind of like that can be a little concerning because like I know like you didn't mention it in like what you've been playing, and I also didn't mention it, but like getting to play Destiny 2 into the light by ourselves, like with the matchmaking and all of that is like I love my live service is that I don't need a team to be able to succeed. And Helldivers 2 feel like the harder difficulties that you need to get to properly get rewarded as to a certain point does get a little too, you need a team for this. So
yeah, I will say they did fix the hitting the square button to like help go into other people's modes. If you have the right difficulty for it, you can get a lot of fun out of that. You just have to really choose your battles with that one, because you can also have a very miserable time.
Yeah, makes sense. So I still have it installed. I'll try it. Hang on. So another quick headline: Call of Duty 2024 could be revealed in Warzone this month. Datamine suggests. So they like doing that, announcing the new one through like a special event within Warzone. And obviously this is the first year where Call of Duty is now fully under Microsoft, and it's going to be that Black Ops game that's the Gulf War game. So I'm not going to install to play this. I'm just going to watch a video. It's too big of a size. It's like the file size is just too ridiculous for me to.
I'm not doing 200 gigabytes to
just for that.
What the deal is.
I will say I am very excited for this year being the first time that I don't buy a Call of Duty game because it's going to be a day one drop on Game Pass. That's going to feel so good. And getting to play it on Xbox. It's yeah. It's,
oh shoot, I might just do that too then.
I mean, you already pay for Game Pass. You might as well.
Exactly. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to buy it then. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So another headline that I love because I just love this dude so much. Maximilian Dude commissioned cel-shaded mod for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Obviously, we all know that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was the last entry in that franchise that Capcom put out, and it wasn't that well received because it still came. Its conception came during the Crapcom era, before their resurgence. This one was heavily hampered by what the MCU was at the time. This was pre-Fox acquisition and all that, so this was the first Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite that had no X-Men characters, which was primarily some of the bigger fan favorites for the fighting community of that franchise. So that's why it was kind of left in the ether. It's just a game that is sold for $10 randomly in many sales, but it's like so disrespected in the fighting game community. But Maximilian Dude, like in its effort, because he's still, again, such a big proponent of fighting games, and he's such a big fan of NBC.
God bless him for not giving up on it either. Like, I'm going to use some of my resources to make a mod that's available to everybody, and then
he paying the dude to do that.
Paying
the mod.
This guy, like it's just crazy to me. But like the results speak for themselves, because while it's before I got into fighting games. But Marvel vs. Capcom 3's crazy cel-shaded style is so cool to look at, even if I hate the game. That when Infinite was coming out, I was like, hey, I've tried something. Let me see what this is about. And then they were like, yeah, we took all of the X-Men out. It's really terrible. We changed a lot of the mechanics. Yeah. So this is like a great first step, I would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it was terrible, because it was still kind of like, again, a good game at the core that was like so inferior to what came before, to just Marvel vs. Capcom 3. That was like such a high watermark, or the GOAT that is 2. So I would hope that now in this new era of Capcom they actually revisit it, especially now that Disney owns the entire property and the X-Men are having a resurgence with the legitimately good X-Men 97 people. I've said it many times that I hate Marvel nowadays, and I had to watch that show because I needed something to watch while I was recovering from this vertigo thing, and the praise had gotten enough that I was like, you know what? I'm seeing praise enough, even from people that I know that were in my camp, that I hate the MCU right now. And everyone was like, no, watch this. It's really good. People, it's really, really good. It's really, really good.
Guys, we did it. We finally got him.
Yeah, they got me with something. The Marvel stuff is case by case basis. So Marvel, like X-Men 97, high watermark right now when it comes to like what current Marvel can do with the X-Men. They're waiting too long to tap into that rich tapestry, and a new NBC that reincorporates the Marvel stuff that the X-Men that they couldn't do in Infinite would do gangbusters. Would re-energize that community. So. Next headline, From Software rules out more Elden Ring DLC, but it leaves the door open for a sequel. So obviously this speaks for itself. Like the Shadow of the Erdtree will be the one and only thing that they're going to expand from Elden Ring. But they will want to do something else. Mighty respect for that. Because here's the thing, like Elden Ring was such a great, big, massive buffet of a game. It didn't need DLC. It absolutely didn't. You can still go play that game and I bet you're going to find something you didn't know was there. The fact that there's still gonna be DLC, like especially for one of these generations defining games, I still don't know like how fully personally excited I am for it, as like trying to return to a Souls game after like your muscle memory is kind of like done. But Elden Ring still is something that I highly appreciate. I still highly think about like the wonderful experience we had with that game, and I'll definitely, even if I don't jump immediately in it, I already got my streamers that I'm gonna watch it play, to see kind of like how things go for that. But I'm glad that would be like the only time, because I would rather a sequel if they want to do that again, like expand it further.
They usually only do like one DLC, don't they?
Didn't Dark Souls 2 and 3 do like 3?
Honestly.
Yeah, they did like 3 pieces of DLC from what I understand.
Okay. At first I was like, yeah, I think they did one for Dark Souls 1.
I got one. 2 they blew it up. 3 again, and no DLC for Sekiro.
Yeah, no, which is kind of funny, honestly. But
which
anyway.
Speaking of Sekiro, I reinstalled yesterday.
Oh my gosh!
Especially because I was playing Stellar Blaze, I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna give that another try. So
I don't know how you do it. Your brain is wild.
Yeah, and then the final 2 headlines are the same company. First headline of the final 2, Activision Studio Vicarious Visions was working on a Donkey Kong game, is claimed. So apparently, from what I was reading for this story, for Skylanders, they did like a Nintendo crossover, like briefly, in one of those like Skylander games from the mid-2010s. And apparently Nintendo was like so impressed with the quality of how they did the Nintendo crossover for that they were kind of talking with Vicarious Visions of them potentially doing a Donkey Kong game, kind of like in that same style. But apparently that didn't make it past concept stage in 2016. So interesting thing about what happened, because Donkey Kong, other than Tropical Freeze, has not had a mainline release in a while, and Donkey Kong is slowly becoming prominent again with Nintendo. Obviously he was all over the Mario movie. Mario vs. Donkey Kong game that was a remake from the GBA game that came out earlier this year. My sister bought it and I got to play it briefly on Switch. It's like they're slowly trying to bring Donkey Kong back, and I would hope that they do like a full game, because I love me some Donkey Kong. If you remember when we did the games that made us, episode 53, my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time is Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest. So I love me some Donkey Kong. So, and the final headline, which painful, but this is a new era because Xbox owns them now. But this was before, like, before the sexual harassment thing happened. This is like just a confirmation of that Activision rejected Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 in favor of supplementary Call of Duty work. I will never forget that era for as long as I live. How Activision blueballed us in 2020, be like, we don't want to just be the Call of Duty people. Here's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 again. Look, Crash Bandicoot 4. It's like, we have these properties. We didn't make enough money of Call of Duty. We can afford doing like this one-offs. And then the next year we're like, now all the studios that worked on this, they're back in the Call of Duty train. So this was just a confirmation of that. And I'm gonna tell you, Phil Spencer, like, please, like, bring Tony Hawk back. Like, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 was so good. So good. And
I know, like, I kind of fizzled out a little bit on my skateboarding love, because, you know, back then it was the 90s. That's what happened. But this is just, it hurts so much to watch, like, oh yeah, this thing that was a sequel slash follow up to a really beloved remake of a really beloved game series just got axed without any thinking, just because people needed bodies to work on Call of Duty. It's like the story as old as time, it feels like now. So I'm exhausted, and I hope that this is one of the last few times we hear about this. Maybe they're slowing down just a teensy amount so they don't have to keep cannibalizing all their great IPs for more Call of Duty help.
Yeah, I'm really hoping Microsoft stewards their acquisition well. I don't 100% believe they will, but I'm hoping for the best, that a bunch of this IP can live again. Like, now that it's like they don't have to piece shareholders that just want the line to keep going up for Call of Duty, because that was the reason why that happened. So Activision no longer has shareholders because they're Microsoft's. So, and with that, Paul, that concludes all news and headlines for this week's episode. Read us the releases for May 12th to May 18th.
We have a pretty small grouping this time. We got Homeworld 3 on PC on May 13th.
Finally, I think, coming out.
Getting its Switch port on May 14th. Paladins on PC May 15th. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut on PC May 16th. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes on Switch and PC May 16th. That definitely gets the title for best title. And Read-Only Memories Neurodiver on PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on May 16th.
Yep. Again, just like last week, another week where I get to save some money.
Yes, indeed.
We have already enough to play, basically. So, with that, Paul, that concludes this week's early episode of the X Button. Tell me, where can people find you?
Y'all can find me on Twitter at Dork of Art. As always, every once in a while I post something, but more lately I've been getting some banger retweets, and every once in a while I make a post of my own that's very funny, so you should totally follow me.
Yeah, I love your Roger Rabbit walked for Kingdom Hearts to do whatever this is.
With the Kingdom Hearts live action and CG blending post, and I can't wait for all of the talk about the Mufasa movie to have Sora walk in and go, I'm building a team. And just, it's going to be weird, but I'm going to be seated for it. That's for sure. We'll see, though. Man, I can't.
How soon are you going to introduce your kid to Kingdom Hearts? How soon are you like going to educate him?
Not immediately. I might tell him about it and like let him read, because I have the mangas for the first and the second game physically, so that can be something that I give him whenever I'm sure he's not going to rip the pages out, because he's a child. But then
how would you feel if he as a toddler like ripped one of those pages?
I'd be heartbroken, because I don't think they make those books anymore. So I'm going to be very careful about what I hand him until I am sure that he is not going to destroy any of it. But yeah, realistically though, it's going to be a while before I show him the actual series, because it is so difficult to play that first game that I don't think he would enjoy himself at all.
Here's what's so funny. How did kids manage to play that back in 2002?
You went to school and you had a friend that played it, and then you said, hey, I can't figure out where the hell Donald and Goofy are in Traverse Town. Can you tell me what I'm doing? And they're like, yeah, you just got to keep going here and do this thing. You gotta click that button. And then you wrote down on your notebook all of the steps that had to happen, because this is exactly what happened to me for this. It happened to me for Wind Waker. It happened to me for several other games. For Wind
Waker, I absolutely remember that, but that was in school. I had a guy from my church. He was guiding me on it, and it's so funny. Like when you go back to that era of time of thinking, how were we able to beat all of this? And it was the school experience, like the getting to chat with, like the campfire idea.
It was all of that work.
Really?
And we're back.
This is really had to cut off like right as we were wrapping up.
Right
like,
as we're wrapping up. Yeah. What was the last thing that I said that you caught?
Yeah, I think it was the whole like campfire mentality.
Oh yeah, just like talking about how you really needed to like go hang out with your buddies, or you bought the giant book that had all of the here, go here and pick up this item and don't forget to do that, or you watched the cheat game. Well, not you watched the cheat show on G4 TV, and that was your other option because you had to see what could happen. And like, I still remember how they explained how you got through certain areas of God of War 1. And it was like, hey, if you need to kick this box before the floor turns to spears and kills you instantly, you got to go through this, and you hold the button down for this amount of time or whatever. And,
that's why you remembered when you play Valhalla.
I still think about it, yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, man.
Oh,
Ragnarok Valhalla was so good. So, yeah.
Anyway.
And then you can find me at _Segovia on Twitter /X, at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram /Threads. And you can find my current written content over at seasongaming.com, where you can go read my reviews for The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Skull and Bones, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy XVI The Rising Tide, and TMNT Arcade Wrath of the Mutants, which sucks. So, and I'll keep reiterating that. That game sucked. But, yeah, and then I was supposed to review Stellar Blade, and then I got Vertigo. So, we'll see what happens. So, but until then, I want to thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I think I'm going to post it early because we recorded early. And then next week is going to be episode 150. I want to see how that takes shape and in what form and when we record it, Paul. So, but until that happens, people, enjoy. Now that we're in May, hopefully the weather is so good where you are. Hopefully you're not in the places that have been like ravished by tornadoes right now, because it's a horrible look. It's been happening, but it's like now summer's here. Get those tans. You can finally go touch some grass, but play some games and
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.